Why are there so many shows starring Muppets and dozens of movies too? They said they'd watch everyone and they mean it. It's something that they've got to do. So now they've pledged you a lifelong commitment. The Muppets, Matthew and Sam.
Welcome to Commitment, the podcast where two friends have vowed to watch all things Muppets. I'm Matthew Gatos.
And I'm Sam Schultz.
And this week we are discussing something not really Muppety, because we are discussing the May 1980 film, The Empire Strikes Back.
That's full of Muppets. What are you talking about?
There's not a single Muppet.
We got Chewbacca, we got Yoda. I wrote down a list of every Muppet in the movie.
Well,
all droids are Muppets.
Oh, okay. That seems maybe like a leap.
Well, they kind of are.
So, you might be asking yourself, why is this Muppet podcast discussing the Star Wars? And, well, it turns out, not only are there some very obvious Muppet connections to this film, but when George Lucas was originally thinking about creating the character of Yoda, he said it should be, quote, like Kermit the Frog, but an alien.
Do the voice.
I can't do a good George Lucas. It just sounds like my Jim Henson impression. It's just, this guy up here, which is a little bit Kermit the Frog as well.
I wish there was video or like audio of them talking to each other.
Hi, Jim. Hi, George. But George also said he wanted something slimy, with a lot of personality, real thin, spidery arms, with little thin hands, and maybe a bulbous body with short legs, but very large, floppy, webbed feet, a big, giant mouth, and two tiny nostrils.
It's like everything is the opposite of what he wanted it to be. It's like somebody was mad at him, and they were like, we're going to make the tiniest little dry man with the littlest mouth possible. And the tiniest little legs.
There was even a description I read where it said slick skin, and he's also full of wrinkles. So he also said it would have the personality of a Muppet, only it would be realistic enough to be believable. And then he even said in his original notes when planning The Empire Strikes Back, we should possibly have Jim Henson of the Muppets work with us.
After writing the word Muppet in his notes 800 times, he was like, obvious conclusion.
So George went and asked Jim, hey, do you think we could build a Muppet that would look realistic enough that you would believe it was a real thing? And Jim said, I don't know, we've never tried that.
But Jim also was like genuinely like right next door, right?
Correct. So ATV Studios, where they filmed The Muppet Show, and Elstree Studios, where they were starting to film The Empire Strikes Back, are pretty much like across the street from each other. I've heard people say literally across the street. I've heard people say 15 minutes down the road. So who knows? But this sort of seemed like this all came together mostly as like an information exchange program where Jim was currently working on getting the Dark Crystal off the ground, wanted to make these creepy looking wrinkly creatures that looked more realistic than his Muppets. Around the same time, George was like, hey, I want to make a creepy looking wrinkly creature with animatronics and stuff in it. And Jim was like, okay, well, if I help you out a little bit, maybe you can help me out a little bit. But as some people might know, instead of Jim and his people making Yoda, George Lucas ended up turning to special effects wizard Stuart Freeborn to create the Yoda. And this is partially because Stuart Freeborn was more of a movie special effects guy. And when I say kind of, he made the apes in 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And the same technology that makes those like ape faces work are the same technology he used in Chewbacca. So
I was thinking this whole movie, Chewbacca looks fucking amazing.
Why
does Chewbacca look so good?
I mean, he's just a classic, like, great design.
He looks real, though.
What's so funny, too, is that, like, the technology Stuart Freeborn used is just, like, one wire in the mouth of Chewbacca that when Peter Mayhew would open his mouth would cause this wire to pull the lip a little bit back on Chewbacca's mouth, so it would like reveal the gums a little bit. But that's like the only mechanism that existed inside of old school Chewbacca for face movement. They like his eyes don't move other than like Peter Mayhew's eyes being through the holes. But the only like mechanism is when Peter Mayhew would open his mouth to like yell, the lip would curl back a little bit.
Wow. And then the rest of it's just how good they did sculpting his mouth and teeth and stuff.
Yep. And there's really unsettling images of a hairless Chewbacca mold out there in the world that you can look up of like what Chewie would look like without fur.
No.
It's a little unsettling. But yeah, before we get into talking specifically about The Empire Strikes Back and all of these Muppets that are in it, according to Sam, Sam, what is your history with Star Wars?
It's pretty straightforward, I think. Like, I probably started watching it just on VHSs that like my dad had probably had forever. I remember what they look like. I think they were like the original version of the movie before they were touched up or anything like that. But I remember watching them in my bedroom on like a 10-inch TV or whatever we used to have. Tiny, like all the way across the room, just like a VHS, but being like, wow, greatest movie ever. So I watched those. I watched Empire the most probably. But I never really was like a extended universe guy. I didn't really play like the video games or anything like that too much. I played pod racing, of course, on Nintendo 64. But then like when the sequels came out or the prequels came out, I went to see the first one and really hated it. But I very distinctly remember like the Pepsi machines with Jar Jar Binks on them and stuff like that. And then going to see that movie with my dad. And probably because of him being like, oh, that movie really sucked. Like, because he said that movie really sucked.
Right, because you were like
yes,
11 or 12 at the time, and you probably didn't know what a good movie was.
But I
versus a
think
bad
I also
movie.
did remember thinking that it sucked. I did not enjoy that movie from what I remember. There was not a moment where I was like, that movie was great, and then being like deflated by my father saying that movie was really bad. But we went to see all of them because I think he probably really liked Star Wars because he's like exactly the right age to have really liked Star Wars, I feel like. But then I took a bit like I just never really got super into it. And then the sequels came out. I really liked the first one. I'm one of those people who loves Last Jedi. It's like I think the best Star Wars movie. But I don't really like I talked to you and Nick, our friend Nick Jenkins, about Star Wars a lot. And I've just like read a lot of pages of Wikipedia for no reason. But and I also really I also remember really liking like the Clone Wars cartoon before the Clone Wars cartoon,
the old 2D one.
Yeah. And then wanting to get into the CGI Clone Wars cartoon and probably watching a couple episodes of it, but then like just it not being the same. It didn't look cool to me like the 2D ones did. So I was kind of like, oh, whatever. I'm not going to be into this. So I don't know. Most of my Star Wars is through talking to you about it, I feel like. But also like I have a homemade X-Wing fighter Halloween costume. So
You do?
I don't
yeah.
know. I don't know a ton about it except that I love how it looks and I love the costumes. That's like my favorite part of it. Is just like the world of it and the weird gross food that they eat and the weird hats that they all wear and like the like bases they hang out in with the big glass screens. And just like the aesthetics of it, I think are my favorite part more than anything else.
Yeah, kind of the same as far as like what I like about the world of Star Wars. Like it's definitely the actual world itself that they just have set everything in. My general sort of rule of thumb at this point is just I like Star Wars. Like when people want to get too much deeper than that or talk about how much they hated a certain thing of Star Wars, I kind of start to gloss over at this point. And I think the biggest pivot point for me was Rise of Skywalker. I did not enjoy that movie a lot.
Yeah.
But I also found myself like not thinking it was the proof of the Antichrist like a lot of people seem to talk about that movie.
That movie to me like tanked my interest in Star Wars.
And it did the exact opposite for me, weirdly, where when that movie came out, that is when I set upon my mission to consume all of the current Star Wars canon. And so that's what made me, get the entire timeline from Wikipedia on a spreadsheet, much like our commitment spreadsheet that I have. But the difference is that I have consumed about 70% of the Star Wars canon at this point, including pretty much every canonical comic book that exists.
Have you done some Legends as well?
No, see, that's the thing is going back to my history of Star Wars, I was much the same in that we had the VHS set that I would consume a lot when I was a kid, and I also would watch Empire the most out of all of them, and that was even more, proven this week as we went to watch Empire, and I was taking notes and stuff, and I was like, why am I taking notes? I have seen this film, I think, more than
That's kinda
every
how I
other
was,
film
too.
I've ever seen. I think this is
Yeah.
probably the record for the film I've seen the most times. But yeah, as a kid, I was just so into Star Wars. I had the original, we had the 1995 VHS set, which was the one with like the purple, the blue, like green maybe logos.
Hmm.
And then when the special editions came out in '97, they re-released them in theaters, and me and my parents went and saw at least Empire in the theaters. I don't remember if we saw the other ones. So I have some experience of seeing like this in the theater, just not in its original run, obviously, because I was -7 years old.
Yeah.
But then, yeah, like I think we were just that age where it was every few years there was another Star Wars thing coming out.
Uh-huh.
We didn't live in an era like, most people had like 20 years where there wasn't a Star Wars if they're older than us. We grew up with like, okay, this VHS set, and then now the special editions, and then, hey, guess what? There's a prequel coming out. And
Yeah.
I was all in on the like toy launch, the giant marketing machine that was the Phantom Menace being released. And I also had my N64 that I bought was the version that came with the pod racing game.
Oh.
So I like pretty much got an N64 so I could play pod racing. I remember going to see Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones, and I have less clear memories of what I thought of those films when they came out, but I do remember sort of feeling that sort of obligation as a Star Wars fan to see the rest of them in the theaters. And like my feelings on those films has like changed a lot over the years, whereas like, when you're younger and more impressionable and everyone around you is saying they're the worst things ever made, you're like, yeah, I'm 20 and don't have very clear opinions on my own, so I'm going to buy into this hype and just say they're the worst things ever made. And then you see more movies and you realize that, like, okay, they're bad in a lot of ways, but they're not maybe the worst things ever made, and they have some redeeming qualities.
Yeah, but that's not really the promise of Star Wars. The promise of Star Wars is,
But
I
I
mean, until then, the
Mm.
promise of Star Wars was like, this is going to be transcendent.
Yeah, but we've both seen Return of the Jedi, Sam.
Oh,
We know
yeah,
that
that
that's,
movie
that,
is
that's not true.
Extremely bad.
Like, Star Wars ended on a sour note.
Yeah.
When
And I think it's funny, like in retrospect too, it's like, oh, they didn't even have a plan in mind for the sequel trilogy. Like they were just making it up as they go. There's no movie that is more clearly making it up as it goes than Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. It's just like,
oh, yeah.
oh, it was your sister the whole time. Sure, that's the ticket.
I mean, I can tell you. So, to cite my sources for a lot of the notes I took for this episode, I read through not entire books this week, but I read through sections of a few books that I own. I reread the Star Wars section of Brian J. Jones's Jim Henson biography.
Mm-hmm.
I read through some of the Star Wars Archives book by Paul Duncan, and The Making of The Empire Strikes Back Enhanced Edition by J.W. Rinsler, which is like a digital Apple Books release that has a bunch of like video clips and stuff throughout it. And I also just, checked out some old blogs like thoseyodaguys.com, which is like one of the guys who actually helped sculpt and create one of the remote control
cool.
Yodas.
Mhm.
And yeah, in looking through all of those, nothing was more apparent to me than the fact that George Lucas was just making all this shit up as he went along.
Yeah.
Specifically in the Star Wars Archives book, they have like, I guess they probably they were recording like meetings that they were having and then transcribe them into this book. And there's so many conversations in that book where a guy just throws out an idea of like, should we kill Luke in this one? And he's like, yeah, maybe we should kill Luke and like move on and maybe have a different character come in and take over the next one. And he's like, yeah, maybe not though. Let's circle back to that. And like they're talking about it where Anakin Skywalker and Vader were not the same character originally.
Oh yeah, in the
thought-
first movie, they're clearly not.
Well, and even going into Empire, the thought was that like it was still going to be this idea that there would be a Force ghost of Anakin who was going to be like both George Lucas making up shit as he goes, but also when you read through these, a lot of this stuff is exactly what happens in the prequels. So it's wild that so much of this stuff like lasted, because he talks about how there was going to be this thing where like Vader, Anakin, and Obi-Wan were having a fight on a volcano, and Anakin ends up falling into the volcano with Vader to defeat him. And then Obi-Wan takes these two twins that were Anakin's kids and takes them off to different planets and protects them from afar. Now, the difference is, in their conversations around Empire and Jedi, when George Lucas is talking about those twins, one is Luke, the other one is mysterious female Jedi that we will meet 3 movies from now, he says. So
who is the person that Yoda is referring to, right, when he says there is another?
presumably.
They actually probably didn't really know who that meant, maybe, at the time.
Correct. And it seems like they put that in case they wanted to kill Luke.
Oh.
Because they had essentially set up these things so that way if they wanted to kill characters or replace them, or people didn't want to come back, hence the whole Han Solo and Carbonite thing was because Harrison Ford maybe didn't want to come back for Return of the Jedi. They
could thaw him out the next one, he have a different face, and they'd just be like, Carbonite does that sometimes.
I think they would have just left him in there.
Okay.
But they built in these things that they were like, yeah, who's the other? It's this female Jedi that we'll meet in 3 movies. So he was planning for like episode 7 or 8.
I read that episode 9 was originally supposed to be the one where where like Vader is defeated.
Well, so that's, there's varying information about that too, because he also talks in this one when they're talking about Empire and planning for Jedi, that he refers to Vader as just like the Emperor's lapdog. We're going to kill off Vader and then we'll bring in another bad guy to replace him. Like he sees Vader as this like easily replaceable villain.
What the hell?
And that like the Emperor is the true bad guy that we should be focused on. Vader doesn't really matter as much. Which is true if you only look at A New Hope. The first Star Wars movie, Vader is purely a lapdog, working man for the Empire.
Yeah, and he could have easily been dead at the end of that movie.
Yeah, and he becomes more interesting in Empire Strikes Back and Jedi.
Right.
But yeah, it's fascinating to read through that book and just hear their conversations where some of the producers are like begging George to kill off characters because he refuses to like let anyone die or get too hurt. And they're like, you got to kill somebody, George. And he's like, how about Yoda?
I think of Star Wars as a movie series where a lot of people die. Like they do a really good job in Star Wars of making me at least care a lot about like random guy in plane who gets blown up. Like I get very sad when like Porkins dies, you know?
Well, and I think that was George's sort of balance is like, I killed off a bunch of people. They're like, right, but you won't, there's like no threat to our main characters. Like you won't let like Luke.
A guy getting his hand cut off is worse than what happens to a lot of main characters in a lot of movies, I feel like.
Yeah. And I think, I think it's one of those things where, because this was so much just like making shit up as they went along, there was a lot of like, but I don't want to kill Luke. I don't want to kill Han.
Nor should you kill Luke. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. But apparently there was another, and there was this Jedi twin sister that was not Leia, because I think specifically in that book, he says that we need to bring in, because again, similar to Muppets, only allowed to have one female character apparently. In the book, they reference that like they'll need to bring in a female Jedi because people will get tired of the princess character.
Oh my god!
So they're like, okay, so we have to like phase out this female character to bring in a cooler female character.
It's so funny that they took such a roundabout way to get to such a like basically like very formulaic basic movie or series of movies.
And also the fact that they like didn't watch A New Hope and go, oh yeah, Leia's the most badass character.
She's the coolest one. And then in Empire, she's also the coolest one.
Yeah, for some reason they took that lesson. They're like, well, people will get bored of her. Let's phase her out.
Han and Luke are complete losers.
So yeah, that's a lot of what I looked through this week, and there's a very good recent article on, I think, inverse.com is what it's called, about the mother of Yoda, Wendy Meidner, who we will talk about a lot this week, because she is the biggest, outside of Frank Oz, Muppet Yoda connection. So if you look up the inverse.com article, the mother of Yoda breaks silence on Baby Yoda and more, which is way more dramatic of a headline than the article actually is.
Silence on Baby Yoda.
Yeah, it turns out she likes Baby Yoda. That's it.
Who wouldn't like Baby Yoda? Come on.
So yeah, I pretty much like crammed like this was like a term paper. Like I needed to write a whole paper on Yoda and the creation of Yoda. So today's conversation will be a little bit different. We'll talk about Empire Strikes Back, obviously, but we're also going to be sort of folding in our Muppet in quotes of the week, Yoda, throughout the conversation. So there won't be a separate.
At last, he admits it.
So there won't be a separate like Muppet of the Week segment at the end of this episode like there normally is. It's just going to be a long conversation here about Yoda and Empire Strikes Back. And
I treated this like how I normally treat my term papers in college, where I think about them really hard and then I do them like an hour before it's time for them to be turned in. And then I get a D in the class.
See, that's how I usually was with term papers. But if you give me something that I'm already really interested
That's
in, like
true.
a Star Wars, and you tell me I can spend my week studying Star Wars,
Yeah,
there's nothing else I want to do.
that's a good point. I suppose in art school I didn't do that kind of thing, just in regular school.
I mean, I even like used it as an excuse this week to consume so much more Star Wars content that wasn't even really Yoda related. Like, I'm still watching Rebels. I'm playing Jedi Fallen Order again. I'm reading more Star Wars comics. I'm watching Obi-Wan. Like, there's so many Star Wars-y things that I did this week that were unnecessary. But just like I felt like I was in Star Wars mode this week. But before we start talking about Empire Strikes Back too much, Sam, what is Empire Strikes Back? What did we watch this week?
Imagine, if you will, a long time ago, a galaxy far away is ruled by a brutal military dictatorship known as the Empire. They control through fear and violence, overseen by the mysterious Emperor and his right hand, Darth Vader, a brutal warrior and practitioner of an ancient type of magic known as the Force. But not everyone in the galaxy is taking their oppression laying down. A group of freedom fighters known as the Rebel Alliance has formed to fight back. A few years prior, the rebels won a huge victory when a young pilot named Luke Skywalker, another practitioner of the Force, not so coincidentally, led an attack to destroy the Empire's flagship space station, the Death Star. But the Empire is too big to be laid low by just one defeat, and in the intervening years, they have tightened their grasp and hunted the rebels through the cosmos. The rebels now find themselves on the barren ice planet of Hoth, led by Princess Leia Organa, Luke, and their weird burnout friend Han Solo, who did Luke a favor once a few years ago and then just never left. Anyway, the Empire figures out where the rebels are hiding and launch a full-scale assault on Hoth. The rebels evacuate, but Han, Leia, and Luke are scattered in the chaos. Luke chooses to go to the swamp planet Dagobah to finish his training in the Force with a weird little frog wizard named Yoda. Han and Leia find themselves barely one step ahead of the Imperial fleet in Han's shitty spaceship, the Millennium Falcon, which he co-pilots with his dog, Chewbacca. Their hyperdrive is busted, so they can't warp their asses out of there and escape the Empire. But, using some good old-fashioned trickery, they give the fleet the slip and head to the planet Bespin to get some help from one of Han's old buddies, a hustler named Lando Calrissian who has retired into the life of a gas mining administrator. Along the way, Han and Leia also become boyfriend and girlfriend. Unbeknownst to them, a bounty hunter hired by the Empire is on their trail, and when the Falcon arrives at Cloud City, Vader is waiting for them. Luke, still training with Yoda, sees this transpire in a Force-induced hallucination and decides to leave, to the objection of the little frogman, who is sure that Luke will be seduced to the dark side of the Force when confronting Vader. Luke says, "I do not care," and jets his ass off into space. He gets to Bespin just in time to mount a rescue mission for his friends, but too late to save Han, who is put into suspended animation to be returned to a mob boss he owes money to. Luke lures off Vader, Lando has a change of heart and directs his people to ambush the Empire, and gets Leia, Han's dog, and some robot friends of theirs off the planet in the Falcon. Luke sword fights Vader for a bit, before Vader stops fucking around, chops Luke's hand off, and tells Luke that he is, in fact, his father. Luke hates that, so he tries to jump to his death in a big chasm. There are lots of chasms in Star Wars, but gets conveniently sucked into a tube as he falls, and is okay. He then reaches out to Leia using the Force, and she directs Lando to go back and pick him up. Luke gets a snazzy new robot hand, and he and Leia watch as Lando flies out into the galaxy to try to find Han. Even though it seems like they have bigger fish to fry than that, but whatever. I'm no Star Wars expert, so I won't pretend to have a lot of insight into what was happening behind the scenes of the movie, but Empire started production pretty soon after Star Wars proved to be a big hit, and was sort of in development hell for a long time. Going through multiple rewrites. I forgot to finish the sentence. Going through multiple rewrites and filming problems of all sorts before finally coming out in 1980, way over budget and way behind schedule. Is that basically right?
Yeah, I don't think it was super behind schedule, but it was behind schedule.
Yeah.
And definitely over budget.
And it was super over budget. And it seems like everything they did made everybody very sick and almost killed a bunch of people, and maybe did kill some people or something like that. And everybody got the flu all the time, it seems like, from being in hot places and cold places. The film was released in the U.S. on May 21st, up against the likes of The Shining, Friday the 13th, and The Gong Show movie. And it went on to break basically every record in its first week and beyond, though it proved a bit contentious with fans and critics alike. Apparently there was quite a bit of complaining about the open-ended ending, the romance, even the Vader reveal. But the movie did, of course, have plenty of critics and fans championing it too, which is why it would go on to be the number one movie of the year, grossing $209 million. Number two, which made a full $100 million less, was 9 to 5, starring longtime Muppet friend and one of Sam's 70s crushes, Lily Tomlin. Other notable top 10 movies are Coal Miner's Daughter, the Loretta Lynn biopic, and The Blues Brothers, which was the first movie based on Saturday Night Live characters, and another film that Frank Oz appears in.
Yeah, he's just cleaning up in 1980.
I guess cleaning up, sure. He was in Blues Brothers for 4 seconds.
I also contend that Blues Brothers is maybe the most Muppety non-Muppet movie that exists.
Oh, sure. Yeah. The Muppets should have been in more movies with lots of car accidents. I feel like that would have been fun. Because you could even put Kermit in the car and see him like, well, hello, you know?
And their bones aren't going to break. They could just bend in any direction and they'll be fine.
Another notable event from the week that Empire was released, Mount St. Helens erupted. And let's just do a quick check of who was the president in 1980. And it is Jimmy Carter still. You
mentioned that they were competing with The Shining at the box office. They were also competing with The Shining behind the scenes when they were making the film because they shot at the same studio. And, old Stanley Kubrick, who needs to do 400 takes of a scene, was way behind schedule as well. And so the studio where they were going to be building the Dagobah set was at the time being used for The Shining. And they were like,
the Overlook Hotel.
Hey, Stan. Get out of here. We need this set.
Or else Luke's going to have to go to the hotel planet to visit Yoda. Where do we usually start? How many stars did you give this movie, Matt?
I mean, I guess 5. It is.
Yeah, I think give it 5 too.
It is maybe my favorite Star Wars movie and the movie I've seen, I think, more than any other film. So I think I got to give it 5 stars.
I don't think it's my favorite Star Wars movie, but it might be tied for my favorite Star Wars movie.
I have sort of a tie between my top 3 for different reasons, and it's New Hope, Empire, and Last Jedi.
Okay.
Like those 3 are sort of like, I like them all for very different reasons. Like for
New
me,
Hope is a lot of fun, isn't it?
New Hope's a lot of fun, and it just welcomes you into this Star Wars world in a way that is like I think just a nice reset. Anytime you haven't watched Star Wars in a while, just watching New Hope is yeah, these are my friends that I haven't spent time with. And then Empire I think is a superior movie to New Hope. It is a better time watching that one. And then Last Jedi I think is the best sort of follow up to the original trilogy.
Yeah. And the fight at the end is so fucking cool when they're chopping up all those red guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think there's a lot about Last Jedi that I think works really well. And as somebody who has, watched all of Clone Wars and Rebels multiple times and even Resistance, there are things in Last Jedi that I feel call back to a section of Star Wars that isn't necessarily explored in a lot of mainstream Star Wars things.
What is that? What do you mean?
I think a little bit of the complicated feelings of the Empire, a war in general. And I think even though my least favorite character in that movie by far is Benicio del Toro's DJ character, just because he decided to play him like Elmer Fudd for some reason.
I don't know what he's doing there, but
yeah. But the idea of that character coming in and complicating our hero's mentality of hey, you think you're the good guys? There's no good guys in this. It's all
that's
war.
My favorite part too. I would have loved to see the next movie explore that even more.
Yeah, I would have liked to see the next movie follow up a lot of what happens in Last Jedi.
maybe any of
any of it, instead of just ignoring it entirely.
Yes.
But I think that is like such an interesting thing that they touch on more in things like Clone Wars and Rebels, because those shows have more time to explore stories and characters, and you get a lot of these like middle ground characters
Yeah.
who
Even like
aren't-
the Mandalorian is like that. Like,
yeah, exactly.
he doesn't really particularly like either the Rebellion or the Empire.
Yeah, I think a lot of those, like I was gonna say, a lot of those newer shows. There's been like 2 of them. Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett explore that a little bit more as well. Some more successfully than others. But I think like the Mandalorian, rightfully so, is like, because it's run by the same guy pretty much, is following up a lot of what Clone Wars and Rebels has built.
Yeah.
In the Star Wars universe.
Yeah.
But yeah, getting like the sort of the Muppet connections in this. The fact can't be ignored that Yoda was like the first major, like, believable puppet character on screen.
Yeah.
It's wild to think about now, because we have so many like CGI characters and like other puppet characters throughout the 80s and 90s that come to like take over, that it's not a thing to think about too much anymore. But
Right.
in trying to like look back before Empire Strikes Back and see what came before it, there is nothing like it.
There's plenty of puppets. There's like
Yeah.
on the original Star Trek or whatever, like there are puppets. They're just really bad.
Well, and we have the Muppets, who have been making some movies
and
and
the
things,
Muppets.
where there's clearly a line, though, where...
They're living cartoon characters. you know?
Right. And this is, even the way George Lucas talked about this, he had a quote that said, "This was a real leap, because if the puppet didn't work, the whole film was going to fail. If it's a Muppet, if it's Kermit running around, the whole movie will collapse under the weight of it."
No, I think it would have been okay if Kermit had been running around.
You think? If Luke shows up,
If he had gone to,
it's just
if he
like,
had gone to
hi-ho,
Dagobah.
Jedi!
I don't know. I think it's worth a shot. But I would say that Yoda, Frank Oz as Yoda, is possibly the greatest puppeteering performance of all time.
I would agree, I think. Like, in my head, E.T. is pretty good, but E.T.'s not that great of a puppet. But like,
he's pretty good because he's so fucking weird, but he's not the same.
no, he doesn't have as much like emotion in his face, like the actual performance of E.T. It's
Yeah.
more like the story of E.T. has a lot of
Yeah.
emotion wrapped up in it.
Which is astounding because he looks like literally like a big piece of poop.
I don't think there's anyone who's really beaten Yoda as far as like a puppet character in a movie having as much of emotional connection and being as convincing.
He's got more emotion than a lot of human beings in that movie. The parts with Yoda genuinely are like, to me at least, like elevated above the rest of that movie. Like he's a better actor than Harrison Ford. He's a better actor than Mark Hamill, but Mark Hamill with Yoda is pretty good.
Well, and that okay. So like getting into a lot of my behind the scenes info, I found out this week, or some I already knew because again, been thinking about this stuff for 30 years almost. The fact that like it seems so great and effortless in ways of like that Yoda just works is wild, because Mark Hamill couldn't hear Frank Oz.
I've read that too, and I almost don't believe it.
Because Frank Oz was below the set and like blocked off in a lot of ways, so that way like he was muffled at least. But his microphone only went to the headset of the director, and so the only person who was hearing Frank Oz clearly on set was the director.
So could Mark Hamill hear like
Yeah, and he had to like time out his lines of like, okay, so I know I should say this at this point. There's also the fact that Frank Oz at the time didn't even think for sure that his voice was going to be used for Yoda. Because George had talked to him about replacing him and about dubbing over with somebody else, like an actual like voice actor, I guess. And so there's some wild early video out there that you can hunt down of like the first day of filming where Frank is performing a different Yoda voice that sounds a lot more like Fozzie. It definitely does not sound good and would not have worked as well in the end. But they actually, I think, reshot the entire first day of filming because the puppeteers and Frank Oz were all like doing too big of movements and too exaggerated performances because they're used to the Muppets. And then when they watched the dailies back, they were like, nope, it needs to be more subtle.
Frank's hand is in Yoda, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so I have again. This is going to be the the textbook episode. So Frank said, "I work Yoda with my hand in him, and my thumb would be in his mouth, and my middle finger is up on his brow. My index finger and my fourth finger are in the upper palate, and the small finger really does nothing. And then somebody will work the ears, somebody will work the eyes, and somebody else will help me maybe do a hand."
So he was doing the brow and the mouth.
Yeah, so he was controlling just the eyebrows and the mouth, and then it was like on other people to help him out with all the other stuff. And those other people,
brow work is exquisite. Also,
absolutely,
I was noticing the brow; it's amazing.
And I think it's definitely worth noting here the other people involved in this equation, because it takes like 4 people to run Yoda, and those other people were Kathy Mullen, who has worked with the Muppets on a bunch of other things. She was the main right hand for Yoda throughout this film. And there's a really good video if you look up with her. There's an interview with her where she talks about how specific and everything Frank Oz was in her doing her right hand movement, specifically in the scene where they have to raise the X-Wing. And she talks about how like she did this like hand wavy motion, and she's like, I did it the same like 30 times, and every time was Frank was like, no, different, and she's like, I didn't change anything. But Kathy Mullen also had like a trigger down by her other hand to control the smile and the ear movement.
That's another thing I was wondering, because it almost looks like there's 2 Yodas. Like there's like a happy Yoda and an angry Yoda.
So there's
but
like
there's not.
There's like 4 or 5 Yodas.
Okay.
There's also Wendy Froud, Wendy Meidner, who we've talked about before, and I've mispronounced her name many times on this podcast, is the woman who was working on Dark Crystal at the time that Jim had hired to work on Dark Crystal, and then they sort of like lent her out from the creature shop to help out George Lucas on this. She was working the eye mechanisms for Yoda, but she had to leave after a few days because she was one of the people who got sick on set. It seemed like mostly due to allergies from like what they were using in the swamp set.
They were like spraying it down with mineral oil.
Yeah, there was like the smoke was made from like burning oil and stuff as well. Ugh. So like it seemed like a very unhealthy set to be on that maybe wouldn't pass muster today, but back then, it's the late 70s. Do whatever the hell you want. And then there was a lot of other people who helped out. One of the people who stepped in the most to replace Wendy Froud when she had to leave was David Barclay. He not only stepped in to help out with some of the different mechanism aspects, but also apparently had to do some of the puppeteering on Yoda after Frank Oz had to step away. So I think he did a lot of he did a lot of the like non-speaking parts of Yoda. Specifically, the one shot that they talk about is that shot where Yoda falls off of Luke's foot, and he has that weird like moment. That was David Barclay puppeteering, not Frank Oz in that moment.
Frank would never.
And when I say there was more Yodas, there were some RC Yodas that could be controlled from afar, like when Yoda is balancing on Luke's foot. Like they couldn't put like a puppeteer standing behind him because they didn't have the technology to erase that puppeteer at the time. Right. But there's also in the scene, where Luke is walking away from Yoda when they're by the X-Wing, and you see like Yoda just standing in a field. Yeah.
When Yoda walks away and he's like, come on. That's a guy in a suit, right?
Correct. And that guy is Deep Roy. The little person who played all of the
Oompa Loompas.
The Oompa Loompas in the Johnny Depp Charlie and the Chocolate Factory movie. He has also done many, many other things.
That's amazing.
Yeah, but Deep Roy was in the Yoda suit. But also worth noting, a lot of these people were not originally credited properly because in order to do something like this for the first time, to have this sort of like puppet that didn't really exist in other kinds of films, they basically had to break a bunch of union agreements. Because puppets were in the prop department, and the prop department had to operate the puppets, which is why a lot of the other puppets in this movie, whether it's a Wampa or a Tauntaun or something like that, were like, if you look up who puppeteered them, it was just like a stunt guy or a props guy. It wasn't anyone like a Frank Oz level puppeteer, because asking like an actual like puppeteer actor to come in and do this was kind of unheard of at the time.
And there's still not like a puppet wrangler union, I think, right? It's still very weird.
There is at least like a puppeteer section of SAG, I believe. But as far as the puppet wrangler part, I don't know about that.
I think that's the thing that's in contention right now.
Yeah, I know that's the issue, that there was talks of a strike at the Henson Company recently about that. And I know in looking into this film, Wendy Meidner ended up sort of becoming a puppet wrangler on this because no one really knew that they needed that role.
Like upkeep on the puppet.
The upkeep on the puppet, but also making sure that like nobody just tossed Yoda onto a table and like set something on top of him. And so like the reason that she's called the mother of Yoda is not only because she helped create a lot of like what Yoda became, but also because she was there to take care of Yoda on a day-to-day basis. But yeah, so a lot of these people did not receive either like the proper credit, or some didn't receive any credit. Like Deep Roy has no credit on Star Wars.
How'd they figure out it was him?
Well, there's like notes and there's pictures of him.
And he probably said, "That's me."
Yeah, he's like, "Hey, that's my face." But something else that they tried before they decided to go the Muppet Frank Oz route. I'm sending Sam a picture right now, and of an early Yoda test.
Oh no!
They put a chimp in a Halloween mask. Sam.
That's a chimp.
That's a chimp. They put a monkey in a mask and expected that to work.
Why? Look at them. They know. That guy in the back. Is that George? Back there looking over the monkey's shoulder?
I don't think that's George.
It looks like him now. He came back from the future and was like, "Don't do this."
It does definitely look like a man looking over saying, "Yeah, you guys think that's going to work?"
Just like going to all the trouble to get a chimpanzee and get a Halloween mask and put give him a little cane and then step back and go, "No."
You know what they need to do now, though? The thing they do with like a lot of like Mandalorian and these new shows is like they canonize things that were like concept art or abandoned, deleted ideas from Star Wars. They need to canonize this monkey troll.
They do.
They need to have like Grogu shows up on his home planet and there's like different species like sort of on his home planet, and that's one of them. Just a chimp body with a troll head. But yeah, I guess getting back to the movie a little bit, did you come away from watching Empire Strikes Back this time feeling any differently about it?
I watched Empire Strikes Back when a local theater was just like rerunning all the old Star Wars movies a few years ago. And this was after I had watched Force Awakens, and Last Jedi, and I probably hadn't seen Empire for like 12 years or something. And that's when I first noticed that like this movie's weird because like all the heroes are kind of losers. Like the Millennium Falcon's just broken the whole time. And that is like the feeling I've had about it since then, is just like, what a weird, subtle film compared to the first one. What a like... I could see how I could walk away from that movie in the 80s, in 1980, and be like, I don't know what I thought of that. I love it, but I feel like it's like more complicated and you got to really chew it over more than you do the first Star Wars. And that's still how I feel. But like it sets up so much, like there's just so many good little background things. Like, of course, Forlom and Zuckuss, my favorite Star Wars characters.
You do have a certain, I won't say obsession, but particular interest in Forlom and Zuckuss as characters. Like they're the
I like
two.
all of those bounty hunters on that bridge. I feel almost the same about. I just like them because they're friends, I think is why.
Yeah, they are quite a good duo. If you read the comic books, they are. They're sort of like it feels like they were forced together to work as a team, and so at times they are definitely like an Ernie and Bert kind of pairing.
I just love a bughead man and his bughead robot. But yeah, I think it just like the world building is, like I said before, it's like better than any movie's world building has ever been, except maybe like Lord of the Rings or something like that. Nothing's really matched it in Star Wars either, I feel like. But yeah, I don't know. Did you feel anything different about it?
Yes.
I also would say that the Yoda part to me is heads and shoulders, or shoulders and heads or whatever, better than the rest of the movie. I think the Hoth part is really good because it's fun, like a bunch of fun character interactions. I think Leia and Han in the asteroid is very good too. And I love like all the sniping they do to each other. I love when they call C-3PO, the professor. I just love how much they all hate him. But I think the Bespin thing is a little bit more like, I'm kind of, I don't know. And then, but the Yoda Dagobah part is so complicated, and Yoda's got such a like interesting way of looking at the universe, which is kind of flawed because he's kind of too pessimistic, and Luke's being a big baby, and you're learning a lot about the Force, and like it does kind of set up like the Jedi are kind of fucked up, and Yoda does kind of set up well that the Jedi are fucked up because he's just like a cranky guy who's very stringent and won't let any deviation happen without being very worried about it. And it's just so much more complicated than the rest of the movie. And I think a lot of that has to do with Frank Oz.
Oh, for sure. I think you're right in that like the best actor in this movie is underneath the floor. Like I think it just works just so incredibly well, and I think it I think thinking about it this time of like watching it with the eyes of like that's Miss Piggy, that's Fozzie, like that is Cookie
it's Miss
Monster
Piggy plus Grover.
Yeah,
basically.
I mean at one point I think this was they were making the prequels actually when they were working on the CGI Yoda. George Lucas remarked that you can see this in a behind the scenes documentary. He says that Yoda is the illegitimate child of Kermit the Frog and Miss Piggy.
Gross.
Yeah, which I mean, you know, he's green and frog-like, but he sounds a lot like Miss Piggy. So
I mean, his attitude. He is a very Miss Piggy type of personality too.
I have a quick aside on while we're talking about Miss Piggy because there was a fun story I read about Miss Piggy being on the set of Star Wars. Because you know they're doing a scene here, and when Yoda says, "Adventure, excitement, and Jedi craves not these things. Follow your feelings," and Luke says, "I have followed my feelings." And apparently, when they were doing that scene for one of the takes, Frank had hidden underneath the set a Miss Piggy puppet.
Wow.
And so when Luke said that, surprising to Mark Hamill, Miss Piggy popped up in a lavender gown and jewelry, saying, "Feelings? You want feelings? Get behind this couch and I'll show you feelings, punk." But yeah, so Miss Piggy did at some point appear on the set of Dagobah.
In Dagobah.
Yeah, not only in Dagobah, but like in Yoda's hut. And there's some photos out there of Kermit and Miss Piggy on the set with Luke
I've seen those,
and Yoda, which are very, very good photos. But I have never seen any photos or video of Miss Piggy in the hut, which I just feel like have to exist somewhere.
The footage has to be out there.
Yeah, I feel like because they were like, you know, on set filming when that happened, you feel like there must be some footage of it somewhere. But unfortunately, that does not exist because it would probably break the internet if that ever got released.
It's locked in the Disney vault now. We're never gonna see it.
But no, I think you're right in that some of the Bespin stuff is maybe a little weaker than some of the rest of it. Mostly, it just like goes on a little long, which is something that like I think when you're watching this movie as a kid, you remember the most exciting moments. You remember the big moments. You remember the duel. You don't remember all the like Lando trying to figure shit out conversations,
or like the C-3PO blowing up thing. It's kind of like prequel-ish almost, where it's just like Goofy, his head's flying around and he's making wisecracks.
Well, it doesn't even really go anywhere.
I don't know why he got blown up. I kept thinking, like, what would C-3PO have done to slow down the plot or whatever? Like, what necessitated him being blown up?
I mean, he doesn't walk really fast. I mean, there's like, we're going to be running around a lot, and we need somebody to carry C-3PO this whole time.
Yeah, that's true.
So yeah, there are definitely, you know, like any movie, if you start to pick it apart, you'll find some things. I'm sure there's a, you know, everything wrong with version of The Empire Strikes Back video, which I will never watch. But it just is, it's one of those things where I have a hard time seeing those faults in this film because it is just so tied to my childhood and like so tied to my love of Star Wars as a kid. I had so many Star Wars toys as a kid. I still have so many Star Wars toys as an adult. Yeah. But like what I see sometimes when I'm watching this movie are like the toys I had, not necessarily like the memory of watching the film over and over, but like the micro machines that I had of like all of the Star Wars ships, and just the times I would spend recreating scenes from the movie.
That's what kind of always been funny to me about the toys is like there are very specific people who are in the movie for like 40 seconds. So what else are you supposed to do with them besides like reenact the movie?
Oh, one of my favorite toys that I had, when I'm talking about the micro machines, is this one that was sort of like Polly Pocket for boys. It was a Boba Fett head that would open up, and
Sure.
inside it was like a Bespin playset. And like the main feature in this Bespin playset is the tube that Luke slides down. And so like the main feature in the middle of this playset is just a big old tube that you can drop your Luke Skywalker figure down. And so watching this movie, and when he falls down that tube, it is a very silly moment when you think about it for more than a second.
I don't even know what is he like using the force somehow, or is he getting sucked into that tube? He's just falling, and then all of a sudden he goes down,
Nope.
like 90-degree angle fall into a tube.
Yeah, no, it's weird. It's very bizarre because I think it has to do, with the force and the falling and stuff to slow himself down so he doesn't die.
But I thought he wanted to die. Is that not what he's trying to do?
I don't think so. I think he's just running away from Vader in the only way he knows how.
Okay.
But I think it's just, that whole tube scene is even more confusing because then a door opens up below him,
There's
and
a
you're
door
like,
in the tube.
well, but the door in the tube doesn't initially lead to the outside. That is not the door he falls through when he starts hanging on the antenna. There's a mini tube in between the two.
Yeah, you're right.
For some reason, they'd added
Well, it's
in
gas mining, Matt. You don't know how they do gas mining.
That's true. I mean, and that's like one of the biggest aspects of this movie that you could easily miss if you don't watch it 12 times. Is what the hell is Lando doing in Cloud City?
Well, I think gas mining makes sense to me. Like,
right, but like they only say like Tabana gas and gas mining like twice, like in a very like offhand sort of way in
but I
this
think
film.
that's great. That's all you need.
Absolutely. I'm a
sure
big
there's
fan.
a whole book about what Tabana gas is now, probably.
I mean, there's a whole book called From a Certain Point of View. It's a series of books that they have put out now. They put them out on the 40th anniversary. So I'm assuming a Jedi one will be coming out next year. But they put them out for New Hope and Empire at this point. And they're a bunch of short stories, like side stories of the characters you see running through the background of these scenes. And some better than others. Some work better than others. Some are just more interesting than others.
Is Ice Cream Machine Man one of the guys?
Of course he is. And our old friend Hank Green is actually in the Star Wars canon because he wrote a story in the latest From a Certain Point of View book
about a Tauntaun Wrangler, right?
Yeah, well, not a Wrangler as much as like the scientist who is keeping the Tauntauns healthy and yeah. So yes, no, it's very weird to have a friend who has written Star Wars canon, but it is those
and
books
who never talks about it. It's all I would talk about if I did that.
Oh yeah, no, I feel like. Yeah, that'd be like on my business card. Star Wars writer once. But it is, those books are interesting because they do expand upon the world in a lot of ways where they talk about these small moments. There's a whole story about the guy who's carrying the box on Hoth and has to squeeze between Han and Leia while they're arguing.
I think about that a lot. It's
Yeah.
like, so rude.
He gets
Those
a whole
two are being
story.
so rude.
Well, even in that story, he's like, yeah, they're arguing again. This happens like a couple times a week. We have to deal with these two just shouting in public really inappropriately.
I think I saw, it was maybe a Twitter thread or something about how everybody in the rebellion hates Han Solo. And it was mostly centered around when Han Solo's like, when they're looking at what the signal that they're picking up could be. And he's like, it could be one of my speeders. And the guy sitting at the computer goes, no. And it was extrapolating off of how rude that guy is to Han Solo in that part.
Yeah,
but that's all I see now is like, this dude is kind of a doofus.
Yeah, it's like, I thought you were leaving. I thought you were done. I thought like you just popped in, you made some money, and I thought you were leaving. Like, why are you still
It's
here?
been 2 years. Why are you here?
It's that very like non-committal thing where it's like, okay, you're hanging out, but you won't actually sign up. Like, it's that friend who like asks to stay on your couch, and they're like, it'll just be like a month. So I don't need to pay rent, right? And you're like, yeah, okay, fine, whatever. And then like 8 months later, you're like, so I know I said you didn't have to pay rent because it was going to be a month, but you've been here for almost a year now. He's like, oh no, I'm tomorrow, man. I am out of here.
And he's got his dog with him.
Yes, and he brought
the dog's actually pretty cool. You like his dog.
Yeah, his dog's great. His dog's very helpful.
much more responsible than him, and he's the one who's trying to fix the damn ship so they can actually leave.
His dog does all the work.
Yeah.
And he just gets mad and says, like, why are you fixing that now? It's like, obviously.
He's really mad at Chewbacca all the time in this movie.
There's in the Star Wars, the Making of Empire Strikes Back expanded edition, or the enhanced edition on the digital version of that, there are some very good behind the scenes video clips of when that scene specifically, of like the on-set audio when Peter Mayhew is delivering lines. And Han Solo walks up and Chewbacca yells, "Where the hell have you been?"
That's cool. So he was saying real stuff and
Yeah.
he was responding to it?
Yeah. and Han Solo's like, "I'll be right back. I'm just going to tell him." He's like, "Well, hurry up." And it's great.
That's amazing.
There's a clip from A New Hope as well where he's like Obi-Wan walks off to go shut off the beam for the Death Star, and Chewbacca's like, "That old man is mad."
And he's British?
Yeah. Well, yeah, Peter Mayhew's British.
Right.
So it's just Peter Mayhew's voice. And those clips are out there if you want to go look them up. They're fantastic to see, just like Peter Mayhew's voice coming out of Chewbacca, and like realizing like that's what everyone was dealing with on the day when they're reacting to Chewbacca. Like they can't understand him because he's actually saying words. But
Well, yeah,
then-
Darth Vader being like Cockney or something, right?
Yes.
The other thing.
Yeah, just David Prowse's voice. Like,
An extremely angry British man who's
Yeah.
like, I should be in this movie, not James Earl Jones. Is that basically what he thought?
a little bit. There is a thing in one of the books for Empire Strikes Back where like he went into it knowing, okay, at this point, I know my voice is getting dubbed over, but what if it doesn't? What if they decide to use my voice this time? And so he like went in still with like a percentage point of hope that like maybe this time they'll decide to use me.
Yeah.
They did not. Sorry, David.
Yeah. We also, this is, of course, you can't watch the original versions anywhere anymore. So this is the version.
You can.
where
You just have
Well,
to. You have to buy the DVDs that I have from 2005.
Yes, or break the law. But Rachel was watching with me, and she felt very bad for the guy who originally played Boba Fett, because they have redubbed his voice with new Boba Fett guy.
Yeah.
I can't remember his name.
Tamira Morrison.
Yeah. But then we went back and watched the clips of old Boba Fett, and she's like, maybe it's okay. Because he is just kind of like, he's no good to me, dead.
Yeah.
He's just a normal guy. So it's a
Yeah.
little bit more fun to have that voice coming out of it.
Yeah, it is one of those things. Like they've done, I think they try to do a really good job. Jeremy Bulloch is the guy who originally played Boba Fett, and I think Tamira Morrison has done a pretty good job of like always calling out Jeremy Bulloch in interviews and stuff when talking about the like legacy of Boba Fett and talking about how like this character would not be as beloved without Jeremy Bulloch's work. So that's nice that he does that. But yeah, it is bizarre, especially because like, you know, they went back and inserted Boba Fett into A New Hope. They added Boba Fett things into Jedi that he wasn't originally doing. And so there's like a lot of stuff of Boba Fett that was like not in the original trilogy if you just go watch the original trilogy.
Yeah.
Like all you pretty much get of Boba Fett in the original trilogy, the untouched versions, are you get a couple lines in Empire where he wants Han Solo, and then you get a couple moments in Jedi, and then he gets shot into a
He
pit.
gets kicked into the Sarlacc pit instantly. Yeah, I also watched this for the first time with like the Mandalorian and Boba Fett and Obi-Wan floating around in my head, trying to like piece together if any of those shows did anything to enrich Star Wars. Don't think they really have too much. I think Mandalorian's great. I love the stuff that's set after Star Wars, except I don't like when Luke shows up. But
I think that's why like that those are the moments where it's not enriching Star Wars, because I think like the moments we just see the Mandalorian living his life, see what the world is like post Empire.
What's this planet like? There's weird frogs and spiders on this planet.
Yeah, and like when people are trying to recover in this like post-war period, and figure out like what is going on. The Empire is gone, but not really. Some people still think it's around. And like that's fascinating. And so like anytime they can get outside of that world and actually add to the lore is great. And I think they have done that a bit with Obi-Wan so far, but obviously it's very tied still to the main arc.
But it is set 10 minutes before the first movie starts, basically.
Well, it's set like 10 years before the first movie starts.
Yeah, I guess I just have a problem with him. Like, I guess he had to find out that Darth Vader was Anakin at some point.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I kind of have a problem with him fighting Darth Vader so many times before he fights him in the Death Star.
I mean, there's also the question of, like, how didn't he know? Because he saw a recording in Revenge of the Sith where he watches Palpatine call Anakin Darth Vader.
He does? Oh, yeah, he does. You're right.
They have footage from Palpatine's office where he's like,
Mhm.
"And rise, Lord Vader." And
Right.
so my only thing is, and I haven't like gone through and traced the tracks of the Star Wars canon back to this point, but like how known across the universe was Darth Vader at this point as like a name? Did Obi-Wan know Darth Vader was a person before this?
I don't think so, because when the third sister says Darth Vader, he goes, "What?"
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't go, yeah. She doesn't say Anakin. She says Darth Vader. And then he's like, what the heck?
Yeah.
So I guess he's just living in a hole, I suppose.
I mean, it seems
But-
like he was trying to, at least. Nobody's going to let him rest, but he was trying to live in a hole.
Freaking Bail Organa just showing up at his house.
Yeah. Hey, buddy. I'm a little busy, being in the Senate, so want to go save my daughter? But yeah, I think I do like watching the fight with Luke. And sorry we're spoiling Obi-Wan if you haven't watched Obi-Wan, but this is coming out like, this episode is coming out about the time when the whole series is over.
The last episode is coming out, yeah.
Yeah. But the fight with Luke that Vader has in this feels similar to me to the fight that Vader has with Obi-Wan in
Yes,
the Obi-Wan
that's true.
series.
Yeah.
Where he doesn't really want to kill him, because I think he could if he wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
There's different reasons. In Empire, it's because he wants to keep him alive and turn him evil. Obi-Wan's because he wants to make him suffer.
Yeah.
He wants to prolong his misery. So there's definitely different reasons. But like the fact that like Vader is holding back is interesting. And it's also interesting when you contrast that to comic book Vader and animation Vader, because one thing that they do really well in the comics and in Rebels specifically, and that they're starting to do in Obi-Wan, which I like, is Vader is just a terrifying person.
Yeah.
Like they have made him so terrifying that in Rebels when he first shows up, no one knows about Darth Vader. They don't know who he is, what he is. They think he might be a robot. Like they just see him as like this terrifying, monstrous, possible droid who is set out to destroy the world. And so like we don't get a lot of that by the time New Hope and Empire comes around, because we're almost at the point where he's second guessing things.
Yeah.
And we
he
also
can't move very much in those movies. I would assume. So-
yeah, because there's scenes in like the comics and stuff and the animated stuff where he's like running up the back of giant sea beasts and slaying these like giant
Yeah.
blue whale-sized creatures on his own with a lightsaber, and it's like, yeah, I understand why they don't put that in live action, because it's gonna be real weird and
Really
out of
silly
place.
looking. Yeah.
Yeah. But it is like I agree that there are parts of Obi-Wan the series that like don't necessarily take away from what we have seen of Obi-Wan and Vader's relationship, because if anything, like it does add some to it as well.
Mm-hmm.
But it is, Star Wars is silly. I think everyone needs to
Yeah.
accept that Star Wars is silly,
Uh-huh.
and there are a billion plot holes that you can poke at if you try.
Yeah.
It's why my Twitter bio is "Life is too short to argue about Star Wars," because the moment you raise an example of one thing that doesn't make sense, I can point you to 12 other things that don't make sense,
Yeah.
but that we all are just fine with for some reason.
Yeah,
I mean,
like
most of the
that
things.
they kept the last name Skywalker for Luke when they hit him on that planet.
Well, and
It would
also,
be so easy to find.
if one of the biggest differences between the original versions and the special editions of this movie of Empire are the added lines, or like added line. They just like literally change like one or two lines in the scene when the Emperor is talking to Vader.
Did they replace him with the guy who actually plays the Emperor for one? 'Cause
Yes.
I think in the original movie it was just somebody else, right?
Yes, it was a woman in a mask, like a scary, creepy Halloween mask that they had then dubbed her voice. Her voice was not the one used for the Emperor,
Right.
but they had some I don't remember who it was. They had an actor do the voice of the Emperor for that because they didn't realize that they were going to cast him a new Emperor for Jedi. Again, making the shit up as they go along. Because, yeah, imagine back in the day, you see that creepy Halloween mask Emperor in Empire Strikes Back, and then you see Return of the Jedi, you're like, that's not the same guy.
That's just an old guy.
Yeah. But in that scene, in the original, they make it seem like Vader has realized Luke is his son. Like, they mention, like the Emperor says, the son of Skywalker, the son of Anakin Skywalker, whatever he says, like, they are discussing the same kind of thing. They are discussing that this is the son of Anakin Skywalker who could be turned to the dark side. But in the special edition, they add a line for Darth Vader where he says, like, how could this be? Or whatever. And it's like, wait, what? How have you not until this moment realized that the young kid named Skywalker could be your kid?
Is that when they added the Emperor saying, search your feelings, you know it to be true?
Probably, yes.
Because it's weird that that's echoed later in the movie to me.
I mean, sometimes we just say things because we remember friends saying them.
I suppose. It's like in The Big Lebowski, there's like a detail of that movie where a lot of the stuff he says is just stuff he hears other people say earlier because he's just a buffoon. And it just makes me think like Darth Vader is a buffoon. And he's like, this aggression will not stand, man.
I just want to hear Darth Vader saying that. But yeah, it's more confusing. And like those are the things that you can pick apart if you want to, because in the canon comics, Darth Vader does find out between New Hope and Empire that Luke Skywalker is the one who did this, and he has that moment in the comics between these movies where he realizes, shit, my son blew up the Death Star.
Yeah. I'm not interested in those kind of plot holes either. But I think the more that they dig down into the minutia of things that already exists, the more it's like just begging people to be like, but why? And why are you making all this extra trouble for yourself when everybody just likes The Mandalorian? Just keep making that and find some other guys to make stuff about. Yeah,
I mean, they have to then create new canon comics or books or that to explain those things that they created themselves. Like, you know, Yoda doesn't have his lightsaber. Why would he have his lightsaber? But yet, let's give it to Grogu. Let's have like all these things that like disappear, and then they're like, but what if they had it again? Like they don't explain how like Luke's original lightsaber shows up.
Maz has that in the bar.
She just says that's a story for another time, and it's like, why not?
And that's actually
now?
Fine. I think that's fine because it's just like, okay, she just. I never even thought about the Luke Skywalker having the same last name until Solo, or not until Solo, until Obi-Wan Kenobi, and then I was like, hey, wait a minute. He's going to be able to Google this kid really fast.
Well, and even the Obi-Wan of it all. Obi-Wan's trying to hide this Jedi Master, Obi-Wan Kenobi, decides to hide, and he's like, I'll be Ben Kenobi. And they're like, really? You can be Ben Johnson?
It's the most common maybe it is Johnson in that universe, you know?
But why would everyone who's coming around say like, hey, we're looking for Kenobi? And it's like, shit.
Yeah. And another thing is like, why hunt down every Force user in the universe when you could just hunt down every Skywalker in the universe? And that's probably way easier because you just have to have a phone book.
Well, those are separate missions, Sam. They're trying to kill Force users because they don't want like, you know, those are the only people who can actually challenge them. So they're sent out there to either collect or kill Force users.
Yeah.
If they're young enough and they can be molded, they'll capture them.
Sure. Well, anyway, that's not about this movie.
I mean,
I have a question for you. Canonically in Star Wars, has anyone ever had sex before?
I mean,
has there ever been a scene where like they're in bed like the next morning?
Yes.
You know, there has been?
Yes.
Okay.
Specifically, I can remember there's a book that takes place post-Jedi about when like Han and Leia are like new parents, and their old pal Lando is hanging around, and there's a scene that he has where he like wakes up next to a woman in bed, and there's definitely references to sex in some of the novels.
But Lando's the only one canonically who's fucked before.
I feel like they've referenced Dr. Aphra, who is like not a live action character. I think she's had some references to some more salacious activities in her books. Because
Right.
one thing that I will say, again, this is not about this movie at all. The extra like expanded universe sort of canon stuff at this point is pulling a lot of the work that Star Wars doesn't put on screen for diversity and for inclusion of like genders, sexualities, like races, everything that like we don't see a lot of on screen. Because I mean the only like non-heterosexual couple in Star Wars is like in the background of Rise of Skywalker kissing for a second.
In a scene that they cut out of some foreign editions of the film, I think.
Yeah, so there's that like obvious like lack of representation in these movies, but I mean there's comics that are coming out like right now where there are characters that use they them pronouns. There are there's a lovely story set in the High Republic era that's about these like two like teenage girl like Jedis in training who like are falling in love with each other but know that they can't because they're Jedi and they can't have attachments. And so they're doing all this great representation in the Star Wars comics and books. And they're just not putting it on screen yet.
But humans do have penises in the Star Wars universe.
Presumably.
That was mostly my question.
That was your whole question?
There's
was,
penises and vaginas.
Does Han Solo
and
have a
all that.
penis is your question.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know that we canonically know that for sure. I don't know if we've ever seen anyone like get hit in the junk in Star Wars.
Oh,
But
interesting.
Jar Jar kind of does. He falls on a thing and he's like, "Oh, Misa balls," or whatever. Yeah, I don't know that they've ever specifically referenced it. I guess now I'm thinking way too much about this. So they have the refresher, which is their version of the bathroom in the Star Wars universe. And we have seen in Rebels, at least, someone standing up in front of a refresher.
okay.
We see Wedge go to the bathroom.
I love Wedge. They should make a Wedge show. I would watch the Wedge show.
He's got a pretty good backstory in Rebels if you go and watch that. I think that's about all the Wedge you really need.
Okay. Never mind then.
But yeah, I think
He's just got a really good name.
Wedge Antilles.
Yeah.
Antilles
That's another one of my favorites.
is like the Smith of the Star Wars universe.
Though there's a lot of Antilles.
There's a lot of Antilles, and that's why it's
around.
confusing when at the end of Revenge of the Sith, Bail Organa says like, "Captain Antilles, have these droids mind
That's
wiped."
not Wedge?
Nope. That's a different Captain Antilles.
Oh. I always thought somehow he got them and then it was just like forgot that he got them.
Nope. Wedge would be
It's like,
like
hey,
a
that's my
child or
robot.
like a teen at that point.
Okay. Was it his dad or just some other guy?
I think it's just another guy. I think they've explained it away that Antilles was a very common name.
Was it originally they just fucked up?
Oh, absolutely. But getting back to Empire and Yoda specifically, you said you had a list of the Muppets in this movie.
Yeah. R2D2, C3PO.
I like that you start laughing as soon as you start because you know this is a weak argument.
Every droid.
Every
The Yeti.
droid.
Tauntauns. The Ugnaughts. Yoda. And the Minoc. And the penis monster in the asteroid.
The big worm.
The big worm. That's all the Muppets in the movie.
I would maybe give you the worm in the asteroid.
Why?
I-
Did Jim Henson control him?
No, I'm just like, if I'm thinking about like puppets, like
Yeah.
a lot of those don't seem very puppety. Like especially droids don't seem like puppets to me.
Did I say Chewbacca? Chewbacca also.
Yeah.
Chewbacca's kind of like Bobo the bear. That's who I was thinking of a lot when I was looking at Chewbacca. I feel like Bobo could slot into that role easily. And he'd have his little man purse on and he'd look great. Another thing that I think is a fruitless argument to have
Mm-hmm.
is, but I'm going to talk about it anyway, is how everybody's like, Luke's supposed to be a badass. And one thing I did come away from this movie with was Luke is such a little baby on Dagobah. When he's trying to lift that stupid X-Wing, he just will not listen to Yoda.
Yeah.
And he's just being a big jerk about it. And he's like, you want the impossible. That is the height of babydom. Luke is never cool, but he's especially not cool on Dagobah when he's being a giant baby.
Yeah, like imagine, like put yourself in Yoda's shoes at this point, and you not only have you've been in solitude for 23 years, whatever it is, by yourself on this weird planet. Your only friends are snakes, and you're suddenly introduced to this kid who you're like, oh,
the
shit.
son of the guy whose fault it is that you're in hiding in the first place.
Yeah. You're like, oh, hey, this guy must be something special. He found me. He tracked me down. Obi-Wan sent him my way. Let's see what this kid's all about. And this kid's just like, I don't wanna do it.
Then why did you fly all the way out?
Yeah,
here, you
Yoda's like,
freak?
I have like 2 years to live, dude. I have lived 900 years. I really don't
Yeah.
want to spend the last years of my life dealing with your bullshit.
And I'm the last guy who does this.
Yeah.
You also do this, so please just let me tell you something.
Yeah. If you want to carry on this Jedi legacy, you gotta listen a little bit.
Yeah. And then when he starts his own school, everybody who comes there, he's just like, the Jedi sucked ass. What a jerk.
Something happens to Luke between what we have seen in Book of Boba Fett and what we see.
Yeah. Oh, he's too cool in Book of Boba Fett.
Well, he quotes Yoda a bunch, which is weird.
Uh-huh. A guy he spent 2 days with, just bitching to the entire time.
Yeah. Also, is like, okay, yeah, you met another Yoda. You don't just need to quote a bigger Yoda to little Yoda.
He doesn't know. He didn't see the movie.
I mean, presumably, though. Oh, God.
What?
You can't. I realize, Sam, you can't make me talk about Star Wars for 2 hours because I have too many thoughts. We see proof in The Mandalorian or Book of Boba Fett, whichever one it was,
Yeah.
that Grogu was at the Jedi
Yeah.
Academy.
Right.
He has met Yoda.
That's true.
You don't need to quote this dude to this dude. He probably heard that shit.
He probably hung out with Yoda more than you did.
Yeah, it was probably like on the blackboard of like, do or do not. There is no try. He's like, wait, are you quoting my old teacher to me, dude? I'm twice your age.
I think that's funny too, that Grogu's 50 and it seems like Yoda's so old, but he's like, you were a baby for 200 years.
Yeah, it is.
Unless Grogu suddenly is just like, whoop, we get teen Grogu, like we got teen Groot. I'm sure we'll get teen Grogu, right?
I don't want teen
I
Grogu.
don't either. Pimply Grogu, but yeah, Yoda's like was a baby for so long. I think it's so funny.
Yeah, because even the earliest stuff we know of Yoda at this point is in the High Republic era of comics and books. And in that, I mean, that's only 200 years before, like, New Hope. And so he's still, like, 700 years old at that point. So he's still been around for a while.
Yeah, but he spent a lot of that time as a baby and child.
He's not a baby and child at 700 at least. So sometime between 50 and 700,
And 700.
the Yoda species ages.
Yeah. I suppose he could just look like a baby, and they all keep calling him a baby. And he's like, dude.
Yeah, he's like, it's really
I'm
insulting
40.
to call me the child. I'm 50. I'm older than everyone here.
I'm just shy. I don't want to talk.
It'd be like meeting your parents' friends and being like, hey, kiddo. They'd be like, what
Yeah.
the fuck?
Yeah, this fool's got me floating around in a space crib.
Yeah, I can walk. I know I'm slow, but I can walk.
I got little legs. Yoda was slow too. But yeah, it's like that's one of the main complaints about Last Jedi, and one of the things that they went to great pains to erase in Rise of Skywalker is that Luke is a complicated man who is not a super brave man and is not a super strong fighting man. He's just a guy who's got like a point of view on things. But that was the main thing I noticed this time, I think, is just, I don't know where people are getting this, like he's an immortal, badass space warrior from.
And I think that's what they're trying to give us now in like
Yeah.
The Mandalorian season 2, where they were just like, look at how badass he is. And it's like, cool, but we've never seen that Luke ever.
Yeah.
And I think we even talked about this maybe before on the podcast, but like
Yeah.
Luke loses like every fight he's in
Yeah.
the original trilogy. So why would you think when we see him as an old man that he's suddenly going to be the biggest badass in the universe?
The only people he beats are a bunch of like scumbags on that sand skiff when he's fighting Jabba the Hutt's people.
Yeah,
right?
but he has a lot of help.
And he's got like 4 guys helping him, yeah.
Yeah. If R2
Leia
hadn't
does-
thrown that lightsaber correctly, like they would have been dead.
That's true. And poor Max Rebo's band was caught in the crossfire. They should have saved those guys.
I mean, they did. Max Rebo is
Max
in Book
is
of Boba
fine.
Fett.
Max is fine. We don't know about the rest of them though.
That's true.
That was not Forlom in a book or in Obi-Wan Kenobi also.
Do we know that?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
I read a thing.
They named
the
the
creator
droid.
said that wasn't Forlom.
Hmm.
That was like IHOP or something. He's got green
IHOP?
eyes. Yeah.
You can't name a droid IHOP.
You actually could, and it would be really funny.
This is 1H0P. Okay.
He's so sticky. Why is he so sticky all the time?
He smells great though.
He does. His little head pops up.
The best smelling
Got eggs
droid.
frying underneath that.
What's funny is like Star Wars has done like promotional droids like that before that have like ridiculous little nicknames. They've done that with like Disney World toys and stuff like that. And so it's like it is not outside the realm of possibility that they would have some sort of like marketing push with IHOP and create a droid named IHOP. And the problem is now I really want to draw that droid.
That would be great. Yeah.
I want like like they have like the little like center like piece of color on top of their head. I want that to be like a pat of butter. Just like slowly dripping over the top of the head that looks like a pancake.
Damn, it would be so easy too, because a little thing would flip open and like a spatula with an egg on it would come out.
He's just a breakfast droid. Oh man. Getting back to Yoda a little bit here, it's worth noting that initially George Lucas did want Jim Henson to perform the character of Yoda, because in George Lucas's words, I thought he was the best puppeteer.
That's so funny.
Yeah. So they went to
Jim's got such good branding.
Yeah, he's like, you're the Muppet Man. You must be the best puppeteer in the world.
You're good at Kermit, but you're actually one of not the best ones by far. Otherwise,
your wife is better than you. Frank Oz is better than you. Like,
yeah.
But it turned out, I guess, thankfully, Jim was too busy because he's running companies and he's making movies and he's doing a lot of stuff. And so he recommended Frank Oz for the job. And they were like, okay, if you say so. And Jim apparently called Frank Oz into his trailer on the set of the Muppet movie and showed him some sketches of Yoda and was like, hey, you want to play this guy in a space movie? And Frank Oz is an overachiever, as I think we've talked about in the past. He wrote a really long biography for Miss Piggy about how she lived above a butcher shop and then she ran away and all this stuff. He apparently also wrote a biography for Yoda at some point.
Oh.
Yeah, he said he wrote it for himself. It was several pages. He said, I had a lot of specifics about what he liked to eat and how old he was, but what hit me the most was that I think he came from a more formal time when I'm sure he had many friends. The guy's probably 800 years old, and somehow he wound up on Dagobah, on this planet all by himself, because of all the troubles around the universe. This was no longer his time. He came from a gentler world.
That's exactly true.
Pretty much true. Like, obviously, the prequel Yoda we see is, like, just about to hit that troublesome time. Like, we don't see a lot of peaceful time Yoda. But, yeah.
He did have a lot of friends, though.
He had so many friends who were maybe paid to be his friends. I don't really know how the Jedi Order works.
I don't think they make any money.
I guess they wouldn't want money.
No.
But, yeah, it did work out, obviously, that they lent out the Muppet team, like Kathy Mullen and Wendy Meidner, to work on this. Wendy Meidner is the true unsung hero of Yoda because she sculpted the hands, the feet, the body, and she also sculpted what they called the, quote, Muppet Yoda, which is like a foam.
Oh, the foam.
Yeah, it looks more like a Muppet character than Yoda. Part of that is because they needed something for Frank to sort of play around with and try to find the character. But it also, when I was reading about it, seemed that the sculpting of the head was taking way too long. They could not finalize the look of what Yoda was going to look like. And Wendy Meidner got frustrated and was like, we need something for Frank to use like yesterday. So I'm just going to make a Muppet Yoda that he can mess around with while you guys fuck around with that sculpt. Okay, cool. I'm on it. And so she just like made it in the traditional Muppet style of like cutting foam and gluing it together. To make that Yoda puppet.
He looks good as hell, too.
He looks a little bit like Waldorf.
Yeah.
He's got the same Waldorf eye, like squinty eye thing going on.
The one that's kind of like bugged out, maybe accidentally.
Yeah. Still a great looking character, even in Muppet form. And the other thing, that Wendy thankfully was there to do is to remind people how these puppets need to work, and so that Frank could actually use it and be a useful puppet, because they were doing a lot of things early on to just make like a prop, like a tauntaun or something like that. They didn't think about like the fact that a man was going to have his hand inside of this thing for hours on end. And so they ended up doing a cast of like Frank's arm to make sure that they were going to have room for the wires and everything they needed. But I think this is a quote from Brian J. Jones's book. It says, Stuart Freeborn and his team continued to tinker with Yoda, but when Frank Oz showed up on the soundstage at Elstree for the first day of filming, The puppet, said Oz bluntly, was still, quote, really fucking heavy.
I was gonna say, I bet that thing weighed 1 billion pounds.
Yeah. So yeah, they had to apparently,
no.
instead of like carving and making him out of foam and lightweight materials, they built Yoda out of heavy, non-pliable rubber, which
Ugh.
put a bit too much weight on his wrist and limited his flexibility.
Did they have to try again or what?
I guess they probably maybe took some things out, lightened it up a little bit, because if that was the first day of filming, they probably didn't have a lot of options at that point. They couldn't like redo Yoda entirely. And Frank only worked on this for 12 days. So
okay.
they didn't have him for a very long period of time.
Right. Man, it's so funny to build a puppet without actually talking to anybody who does puppets.
Well, and that's why they like also that's like when you see pictures of behind the scenes of Jim and Frank in the special effects studio for Star Wars, it's because they were across the street and they just would like bring them over sometimes to be like, "Are we doing an okay job? Are we making a good puppet?" But apparently it still didn't work out quite well if he got on set and it was still too heavy.
Yeah. They did make a great puppet, though. One of the best puppets.
If not the best puppet.
Yeah. For my money, a puppet's going to trump a CGI character any day.
Well, especially when you can, I think, do it well. Like that's one of the
Yeah.
things, one of my favorite things that they tried to do a bit more in some of these more recent Star Wars is they've tried to bring in some more practical effects. And when you can tell that's a man in a mask. And that's my favorite Star Wars is because some of my least favorite character designs in Star Wars are things like the Camino aliens.
The tall-headed guys.
Yeah, like the tall cloners with the long necks. Because I'm just like, there is no way a man could be in that costume.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I
it's
think-
it's exactly the same ethos for Godzilla movies for me, where it's like, I don't like the Mutos and the newer, like the first newer Godzilla, because they just look like the Cloverfield monsters, and it's like this is not keeping with the spirit of things.
Yeah, no, it's hard to put your finger on sometimes, like why a design doesn't work in the world of Star Wars, because well, as we said at the beginning of this conversation, that is our favorite thing about Star Wars is the look, the feel, the vibe of it. My favorite thing about going to like Disneyland at this point is Galaxy's Edge and how you can like walk around in a place that feels like you're in Star Wars.
Yeah.
So it's so hard to put your finger on something as like what makes it Star Wars, but you know it when you see it.
Mm-hmm.
And you see something, you're like, that ain't Star Wars.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's a character, sometimes it's a droid, sometimes it's a ship. And it just is, it's interesting to see.
Babu Frick.
Oh, fuck you. Babu Frick's amazing.
I hate Babu Frick.
Babu Frick
He's just a minion that they put in Star Wars.
Well, Babu Frick's going to be in the next season of The Mandalorian, reportedly.
Is he really?
Yeah.
Maybe they'll step on him.
I mean, they can't because that takes place
Oh, yeah, he's
before
still alive.
Rise of
That's
Skywalker.
true.
My favorite fact about Babu Frick is that he did die in Rise of Skywalker originally. He was
they
like
couldn't-
he was on the planet when it got exploded. But then apparently Steven Spielberg watched a cut of the film early on and said, "Did you kill Babu?" And they're like, "Oh, I guess. Like we didn't really think about Babu that much." And he's like, "You can't kill Babu." And so they're like, "All right, put him in the X-wing or the Y-wing at the end."
Another thing I felt when I was watching this was extreme happiness and pride for Frank Oz. This feels like the top of his story, not the top of his story arc even, but just like him getting the recognition he deserves, which he will continue to like hold on to and be like, maybe this is his hero moment where people were like, oh yeah, this guy's the shit.
He does say in one interview that it's the hardest thing he's ever done.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that like shows because I think it's not just puppeteering, it is acting. He is trying to bring this character to life in a way that they don't have to
That
worry
no one's
about.
ever done before.
Yeah, and they don't really worry about with the Muppets. Like they just like there's a level with the Muppets where you see them and you just have to either accept or not accept immediately. Like I'm gonna treat this thing like it's real.
Yeah.
Versus Yoda, they're trying to convince you that this thing is real by just you experiencing it and saying like, oh my god, what is that thing?
Yeah.
Which is such a bummer that they have a CGI Yoda in the prequels.
And they went back and made him CGI in the first one, didn't they? Or did they not?
They did because they had made a young Yoda puppet.
Yeah.
And so in episode 1, they were like, what if Yoda looked younger? 20 years before.
Before, yeah.
Again, we don't know how they age. We've only seen
He's only
like 3 of his species
780
ever.
now.
But yeah, like they tried to make a younger Yoda puppet, and then they like immediately regretted it and replaced it with CGI. But I think there's definitely something, lost in the, like, you do not get those subtle Yoda moments inspired by Frank Oz's movements. Like, he helped, he did the performance still, he voiced Yoda in those movies, and he advised on it, but there's still something missing from Yoda in those other performances.
What do you think about him in Last Jedi?
I like that they used Frank Oz, they used a puppet, and they supposedly used the original molds to make that puppet. But he looks weird to me.
He does look weird.
He looks slightly bloated. And I don't know.
Well, he's a corpse. Maybe that's why.
Something about Last Jedi Yoda just looks off to me. And not in every shot, but there's certain shots where he turns his head a certain way, and I'm just like, that doesn't look like the same puppet to me.
Yeah, he's a bit puffy. His eyes aren't sunken enough or something like that. But it was great to see him, and it was great to see him as a puppet.
Oh, and he's fantastic, like, in that role. Like, I think that he comes in and is just like shits on everything Luke thinks.
Yeah.
It's like, I think you could have told him this a little bit earlier, Yoda.
He was trying. Luke never listened to him one time.
He just keeps running away to save his friends.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I am extremely happy they brought him back. There's a very sweet behind-the-scenes video of they're like rehearsing Yoda with Frank Oz, and Mark Hamill walks over and is like just watching him in awe. And they have this sweet little reunion moment where they're like, "Hey, friend, we've been working together for so long." But yeah, I think aside from Frank Oz, there have been some other performers that have taken on the role of Yoda. Mostly just one, actually, now that I say that. The voice of Yoda in the Clone Wars and a lot of the video games is Tom Kane, who is not trying to do necessarily like a Frank Oz impression. It has his own sort of spin on Yoda, but it has a very specific Yoda as well, that you can tell the difference between Frank and Tom Kane's performances. It is worth noting, though, one of the great things in Rebels, Frank Oz came back and performed the voice of Yoda in Rebels for a couple episodes. And that is another moment, much like Last Jedi, where you're watching it and you just hear Frank Oz and you're like, "Oh, that's Frank." Like, cool. I know that's Frank.
But the other guy has been mostly accepted by the fandom.
Oh, yeah. I think the Clone Wars voice actors specifically, I think, are so beloved that they're sort of like their own separate cast of Star Wars at this point, where if they were replaced on something, there would be a riot of like, you can't have another Anakin, you can't have another Obi-Wan, like it has to be these people. Which I understand the Star Wars fandom, a little extreme at times. Maybe a little terrible at times.
Maybe so terrible that they kind of, by extension, ruined being a fan of anything, I feel like.
Yeah, I think a lot of fandoms have absorbed the behavior of Star Wars fans in a way that is very unhealthy, and they think that's what fandom is supposed to be.
Once you make a whole movie responding to the criticisms of your fans, then you have lost the plot completely.
Yeah, no, I think, much like this, I like to have one-on-one small conversations about Star Wars with people, and if people want to ask me Star Wars things because I have a whole bookshelf that is just Star Wars books, and they're like, "Hey, seems like you like Star Wars a little bit." I have no problem having these kinds of conversations, but the last thing I ever want to do is like publicly on Twitter or something get into an argument about a Star Wars thing. Yeah. Because, Star Wars...
Because life's too short.
Life's too short, and also Star Wars is whatever it is for you. Yeah. Because, when you go through and read a lot of the canon, much like the Muppets, you realize there's some shit in there. There's some stuff that's just not good or not enjoyable, whether it's a book, a comic, an animated series, episodes of the animated series where you're just like, that was garbage. And so it's like you have to accept that not everything Star Wars gets a gold medal for being the best thing ever. There is plenty of bad Star Wars out there in the world, just like there is plenty of bad Muppets out there in the world.
Mm-hmm. Very wise.
Thank you. That was my best Yoda impersonation. But speaking of Yoda, he has been our Muppet of the Week this week. We've talked about him a lot on and off. But if you had to rate Yoda, Sam, what are you going to rate him out of 10?
10. He's the best puppet ever made,
Yeah.
like you said.
He gets a solid 10.
He is in so many ways, and I think it was worth doing this episode just because of this. He is all of the practice that and all of the work that Frank Oz and Jim and all of them have done legitimized, which is not a fair word to say because the Muppets are perfectly legitimate, but like he is the height of the art of puppetry, I would say, performed by like one of the best puppeteers to ever live.
Well, and when you think about it, the fact that, at this point, Frank has been doing this puppeteering thing for about 15 years-ish, a little bit more than that maybe. And he really has like sort of hit like not only his peak puppetry, but peak puppetry in general.
Yeah.
And so many things like Dark Crystal, Labyrinth, E.T., so many other characters like that probably would not exist without Yoda coming before them.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically Dark Crystal, because obviously that's what we talked about earlier, is that this was a little bit of like an information exchange program where Jim was starting to try and learn how to use latex more to create more realistic looking creatures for his upcoming movies. And I think when we see Dark Crystal here in a little while, we will see that he definitely leaned into the gross, wrinkly guys.
Yeah, they just keep getting grosser and wrinklier.
And slimy and gross. And, but yeah, the only other like a few little like fun facts I had here about Yoda before we wrap up is that, we've only seen 2 other Yodas before his species. One is Grogu, obviously the baby, and one is Yaddle,
Yes.
the lady Yoda.
Mrs. Yoda.
Who we don't know a lot about in the world of Star Wars. But it was a thing that they slipped into episode 1 where they're like, hey, look, another one.
Girl Yoda.
And the other fun fact I have is that originally he was going to have a full name. It was Minch Yoda.
Yes.
Minch Yoda was going to be his name, and he looked a lot more like a bridge troll in the original concept art than he turned out looking, which is, I think, weirdly cute.
Oh, yeah. He's adorable.
And that's largely
he
because
does look like a troll, doesn't he?
Yeah, original Yoda is a bit more of like a, what's his face? The Bakshi.
Yeah. Ralph Bakshi.
Ralph
Lord of
Bakshi.
the Rings,
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah, like Ralph
Right.
Bakshi style drawings.
He looks like a lawn gnome, kind of.
Yeah, a little bit.
Oh, and there's some concept art that looks even more like a lawn gnome.
Yeah, so thankfully they steered away from that, and they made him look exactly like the Stuart Freeborn guy who was the head of the department for the special effects.
Yeah.
Like, looks almost identical to that man. Just slap long ears on that man, and you can have a Yoda.
Ooh, I forgot something about the 80s, about this time period also that is important. Pac-Man is being rolled out in Japan right now, which will soon become like the biggest video game ever, which I think is kind of cool. Predated by some Muppet video games, though, which, they were really setting the stage for Pac-Man.
Yeah, I'm sure that they were Namco or whoever was like, these Muppet games are pretty good. We should make our own.
What if they put down the Miss Piggy's Wedding game, and then the Pac-Man team picked it up and said, we have an idea for this. We'll finish your game.
Let's
Don't
make a
worry."
good game instead.
Yeah.
If you are interested in seeing us play some of those early Muppet video games, thanks for the segue here, Sam. We do monthly live streams on our Patreon page where we play some old school Muppet video games. We've played like 5 or 6 different ones at this point. Most of them are quite bad or extremely hard and bad at the same time.
And bad. Yeah. I've been haunted by Chaos at the Carnival since we played it. I just keep thinking like we are so close yet so far.
Yeah, so you got to tune in every month to see if we'll ever actually finish one of these Muppet video games because
We're getting to the point where there will actually be video games a human being would want to play.
That is true.
We're going to be okay.
But yeah, you can sign up for our Patreon, just $4 a month, to support the podcast and watch us play some Muppet video games. But Sam, before we go, any last thoughts on Empire Strikes Back?
I feel like 2 hours of talking about it, I've said everything I needed to say. I was kind of dreading watching it because I've seen it so many times. And I don't really watch movies that I've seen over again very often. But once you see those X-Wing fighters and their cute little outfits, you're just sucked right back in. I do wish, the one thing I wish is that they had hired a sword fighting consultant that was better than whoever they must have hired, because that fight at the end isn't very interesting.
Yeah, no, there's not a lot of excitement in their movements between Mark Hamill and I don't even think it was David Prowse. I think it was Bob Anderson, I think is his name, was the stuntman for...
It's also funny when Vader is throwing just like boxes at Luke and Luke's like, ow, ow.
There's also a moment in that like there's certain things I think in Star Wars that like happens in the old movies that like now they would not let happen in newer movies. And there's a moment when like one of the boxes is gonna fly at Luke, and like the way they show that Vader is gonna use the Force is he like takes his lightsaber and just like dips it down in front of him slowly, like he's about to go use a urinal.
Yeah.
But like that's just a weird motion for Vader to make, and I'm like, that doesn't feel like something we would see Vader do these
it looks
days.
like my penis.
Oh, the one other thought I had watching specifically that scene, in comparison to watching Obi-Wan recently, is that we currently live in a golden age of lightsabers being used as light sources, because they actually have like LED tubes on set that will cast light, versus in Star Wars, in the original trilogy, even in the prequels, there was no light being cast by the lightsabers. I noticed that too.
Darth Vader's mask is not red at all.
No, they don't get the good, cool highlights. And there's been a couple scenes now in Obi-Wan where they're fighting in like complete darkness with their lightsabers being the only source of light, and it looks amazing.
Really freaking cool.
And they didn't have that up until The Force Awakens was the first time, like the Kylo Rey fight is the first time that they actually had like lightsabers as sources of light on set, and it makes such a big difference in those fight scenes.
They gotta get some steam going in Star Wars land at Disneyland so you can walk through with your lightsaber and look badass. Yeah.
Hey, I have like 5 lightsabers here, Sam. You can just come over. We'll set up a fog machine, and we'll just.
Okay. I have a fog machine. So
look at that. I don't. So
that's what we'll do next live stream. We'll set my fog machine up in my basement. Swing
lightsabers around. Well, if that's what you want to watch, it's $4 a month to sign up for our Patreon. So look out for that. So before we go, Sam, did you watch any non-Star Wars, non-Muppet things this week?
Oh, well, I watched Obi-Wan again.
That's pretty Star Warsy.
Star Wars, though. I finished Stranger Things, which I thought was fine. I enjoyed it. And you know that movie RRR? Have you heard of this movie?
I have heard of that movie, yeah.
On Netflix.
I have not watched it.
We're watching it with some friends, and it's 3 hours long.
Yeah.
It's the biggest movie biggest action movie in India, maybe in history or something like that. It's this huge action movie. We started watching it this week. Watched the first hour and a half of a 3-hour movie. It's so fucking good. It's so good.
Yeah, I've heard. I have looked into the history of that movie and like watched some clips of it, because it is truly like the biggest, wildest movie they've like ever made in India, and the title is based on the names of the actors and director. Like, so it would be like a movie coming out in the U.S. called like Vin Diesel, Dwayne Johnson, Steven Spielberg. Like, yeah, and it's just like that's how big these guys are. And how famous they are is that they can just like name the movie after themselves.
Yeah. And it's well earned, I would say, because it's so goofy, but it also is so like earnest and legitimately good. And there's like real stunts in it, which is so jarring to see. Like that car actually or like that train actually crashed, or like those rocks actually like fell down that hill or whatever. It's like not CGI. And sometimes, and it's just like amazing to see, because that never happens anymore. There's also fight scenes where you're like, how are they doing this? And how did this person not die? Someone's literally just beating the shit out of them. It looks like I can't figure it out. Yeah. And there is some CGI that's really bad, but then there's the fight scenes are amazing. The action's amazing. The storyline is absurd. The two main characters are so cute together, and it's like Dragon Ball Z, but a really good movie. And so I would highly recommend at least the first half. I haven't seen the rest of it. I don't know. Maybe it'll get bad. The first hour and a half of RRR, highest recommendation. How about you?
I started watching Stranger Things. I've only watched the first episode of the new season so far.
Uh-huh.
I'm excited by the Nightmare on Elm Street vibe, which obviously
Oh man,
we
and I
have
keep
Robert
it
Englund.
up throughout the whole thing.
I'm excited by that. I also watched the first episode of The Crown because I decided to start that new show this week as well. And watched the first episode of Miss Marvel this week as well.
Oh yeah, I watched that too. First of all, I gotta say, I really enjoyed The Crown. It's kind of stupid, but I liked it a lot.
No, it's exactly my shit. Like I love like historical dramas, and it's filmed so well and looks amazing.
There's an episode of the Princess Diana era that is like one of the best episodes of television I've ever seen. It's so scary and so just like like make you want to puke. It's so good.
I'm excited to watch it all because it is one of those things where it's like the time period and everything is like exactly my shit, but also like I've just heard so many good things and it's won so many awards that I'm like, okay, at a certain point, this is just a good TV show, regardless of like how interesting like I find the content anyways. Because I'm not that interested in the royal family in general, but it seems to be doing a good job of making it interesting.
Yeah, it's fun. What do you think of Miss Marvel?
I liked it.
I liked it too. I liked it a lot. I can't believe I forgot about it because I liked it so much.
It was like a lot. Like the first half of that episode is just kind of like punching you in the face nonstop.
I like that.
It just felt like they took Scott Pilgrim and like crammed it into 10 minutes. And I was like, there's so much happening and my brain can't process that fast.
Because the other TV shows have been so just like flat kind of that it was refreshing to see them at least being like, let's try to do something cool.
No, I do. I applaud the Scott Pilgrim Spider-Verse vibe this has, where it just feels very different from a lot of the MCU stuff. It just felt like, to me, it was like that episode should have been 2 episodes. It felt like to me. Like I felt like I would have liked maybe like the introductions a little bit more drawn out and not just like, here's these 5 characters, care about them, go.
But I feel like they set like a thing that the Marvel shows especially don't do as well is like be a little goofier sometimes so that when the silly thing happens, you're not just like whiplashed out of it. I felt like that happened in Hawkeye a lot where like the Tracksuit Mafia was silly, but then they would do like something horribly violent and real and you'd be like, why are these guys like goofballs? Or why is Hawkeye shooting them in the face with arrows? Like, what am I supposed to be feeling about this right now?
Right. It would be like if suddenly Miss Marvel just starts using her powers to like decapitate bad guys. You'd be like, what the?
Yeah.
This is weird. This vibe is not
a bad guy who's like been telling jokes the whole episode, and then all of a sudden she's like, wow. Off.
They do make the Tracksuit Mafia like likable in a way.
Yeah. That
it makes it a little bit jarring when they start murdering them.
Yeah. But yeah, I thought that was pretty good too.
So, next week, we won't be here. We have to take a couple of weeks off because Sam and I have some work stuff to do. Woo! Exciting. Sam and I are both traveling for work. We work at the same company, for those that maybe don't know that. I don't know. And so, we have to take a work trip. And so we won't be around the next couple of weeks to record. And we're not going to try and record while we're on that work trip. So we will be back. July 11th will be the next episode that comes out.
Jeez, that's so long from now.
It's literally a month, pretty much, from when we're recording this. But we will be back on July 11th to discuss what the Muppets were up to in the summer of 1980. And that will be including their performance at the 1980 World Puppetry Festival, as well as some brief TV appearances on the Jerry Lewis Telethon and the TV show Eileen and Friends.
Never heard of it.
But
I'm excited to be back in the grab bag era of stuff.
Yeah, and the World Puppetry Festival performance, it's like a 40-minute long, clearly recorded on a VHS tape, bootleg kind of thing. And it's actually something we're going to kind of see again later on because they repurposed part of that performance for a special called Here Come the Puppets later on. But this is the like full uncut 40 minutes of Muppet performance live on stage. And so I want to talk about that. But yeah, we will come back. We'll be talking about that. And then the week after that, we'll be diving into season 5 of The Muppet Show.
The final season.
So,
who will live? Who will die?
But we need to thank our friend Tuna for making the music for this podcast and Cassie Wilson for singing our theme song. Don't forget to head on over to commitment.com where you can find links to buy our enamel pin or to our Patreon page that we talked about earlier. You can email us at mail@commitment.com if you'd like to reach out. You can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram at commitmentpod. And you can follow me on the internet at Matthew Gatos.
And I'm Sam Schultz.
And as always, keep believing.
Keep pretending.